Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Sick Talks where I'll be going live with not one but two people this time. So our guests for today are Varud Gupta and Ayushi Rastogi, the authors of Chhotu, uh, A Tale of Partition and Love. You might be seeing this in the opposite side, but you can do check out my feed for the book review. And so Varud is here, so I'll just get him on.
Hi.
Hi Varud, hi. So I will just also send the request to Ayushi and then we can begin.
Sounds good.
Great. So yeah, she's joined as well. Hi Ayushi, hello Varud. So because Instagram allows only two people at a time, we'll first talk to Varud and then we'll have Ayushi on screen.
Sounds good.
And so you can send in your questions, guys who are joining in. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, very happy Independence Day, Varud,
Happy Independence Day.
and this is, I think, the perfect time to talk about your book because it is set in 1947 as India was getting independent.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Also, I
Chhotu,
want to say, and especially thanks
yeah,
to
yeah.
you. You've been a part of this journey since the very beginning. I remember meeting you at the Oxford book launch. So, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me,
Thank you,
having
thank you,
us.
thank you, thank you. And it's a really short notice for informing you, and it just happened. So yeah, everything I think happens for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
So
as you said,
yeah,
the book is about 1947 Chandni Chowk. It's very much inspired by our grandparents. My nana specifically, Subhash Chandra Rastogi, who lived in Chandni Chowk during this time. He grew up during this time. Very much sitting down with him over a period of days, about a year of research, just trying to pick up these stories, build in these small details that I think some readers pick up on, some readers might not, but it just kind of brings the story together. And it's very much about communalism, about politics, about freedom, and about the role media plays in our lives today.
correct, correct. The book has a lot of different themes, and the way it is told, it's just phenomenal.
Thank you, thank you. For anyone that's tuning in, we actually did a little live reading of the book with some of our friends today as well, which is up on the Chhotu graphic novel page. If you haven't read the book yet, I think it gives a very good idea what the book's about. And if you had read the book, it kind of brings it to life a little bit with some of our friends, some great voice actors. So yeah,
Yeah, I was actually watching that a while ago, and that's really interesting video that you guys
yeah,
have put up.
thank you.
And I would really, love to see Chotu come alive on stage someday, where after COVID we can all come together and do it on stage.
Yeah, that's actually been something we've been really thinking about. We think it'd be a great a stage play. It was something we
Exactly.
started exploring before COVID, but now that obviously lives have changed a little bit. But yeah, I think it would be great for a dramatic. It is a very dramatic piece, so I think it would
Correct.
be great.
So, Varud, I have some questions for you, and
Hit me.
to know more about you, more about the book and the story behind the story.
Absolutely.
So, the first question that I have is, how did the concept of writing a story on the idea of partition came along?
Um, so it took us a while. Me and Ayushi, it actually started with the idea of working together and doing a graphic novel together. That's very much where we started off. And for me, I was going through something in my life where I felt very small as an individual. And I think the inception point for the story maybe wasn't actually partition, but it was the idea of, someone who is small can still make a difference in the world. And I know like it can feel very Bollywood or it can feel very, cliched to say something, but it's very much a feeling that I was feeling in my own life at that time. And that was the inception point. But the story didn't blossom until we actually had the partition. It started off if you read the end of the book, we actually hint at it. It started off as a superhero story of
Correct.
Chhotu who ends up, finding Alu and beating the Dons and stuff like that. But the book didn't come together until we realized there was a larger story to tell. And thematically, that became the story of the partition. And thematically, being able to actually capture our grandfather's legacy before he passed away became such an important part of this book.
Yeah, that actually reflects, in the storyline of the book, how Chhotu, being the person he is and the name Chhotu, and he has a lot going on in his life, yet he decides to do something for the society. And when the Alo thing happens and he investigates and the things happen, so that's actually a superhero story in itself. It's the
Yeah,
origin story of Chhotu.
a little bit of the superhero remained in his story.
Yeah. So, you said this was initially a story. So, what was the process of converting it into a graphic novel? How did that process come along?
Yeah. So it was the first time, obviously. This was our debut graphic novel, me and Ayushi. So we had to do a lot of research because we didn't want it to be a graphic novel for the sake of being a graphic novel. We wanted to make sure that we made the most of the medium itself within the story. And so a lot of research went into like, how do we fully encapsulate what the medium of a graphic novel has to offer? But at the same time, graphic novels haven't been a big genre in India. And we wanted to make sure that it retained that feeling of India because it's such a big turning point in the history of this country. So even if you notice small things like, there's no knock, knock, knock in the
Correct.
book. It's all cut, cut, cut. Like the small things we tried to do to make it very much feel like a graphic novel that takes place in India was the idea behind it. After that,
Yeah.
Ayushi can go into a lot more detail, but we spent a lot of time, me and her, actually sketching out panels from the book. And we talk about this, like, I recognize Ayushi's scratch work to a point where, like, it's like a secret code between the two of us. I will know what she's talking about, but no one else will understand it. And I think that's what happens when a writer and illustrator spend so much time together creating a vision of two minds.
Correct. It's almost like you're creating a movie with, pen and paper and you're drawing it out. And as you
Yeah.
mentioned, there are very subtle references. There are newspapers, there are hoardings, and you actually see them today also. If you go to the old part of Chandni Chowk, you can still, see that kind of ports, that kind of shops.
Yeah.
So that's
There's
actually an interesting.
Yeah, even so, Ayushi's visual research was amazing. The amount of pictures that we had to pick up. I remember we were so excited when we found out, oh wow, Chandni Chowk used to actually have trams. And then we actually went trying to look for the tram tracks in town during one of our live recce trips. And it was just a lot about this world, and it's only been 70 something years. But even in that 70
Correct.
years, we lost so many of these details.
Correct, correct. Even the new Chandni Chowk development plan, the modernization of the area, the paving. So, that
Yeah.
actually that is a part of development. But again, we are losing a lot of the image that that Delhi Six had.
Very true. And, I think that's always been a very interesting thought. In the other book that I did, Bhagwan Ke Bhagwan, I spent a lot of time thinking about exactly this, that, you know, development is great. And it's sad that we lose kind of, traditional or old things about ourselves. But at the same time, it's hard to say what's right? Like,
Correct,
progress has its good things for people, especially if you're not the one being directly impacted. It's kind of hard to say, oh, people in Chandni Chowk should continue to live in the same way they have been, because we aren't that community.
correct, correct. Because development has to happen, and
Yeah,
that's actually difficult. So another interesting aspect in the book is that all the characters are non-human, yet
yeah.
they have all the human features. So what was this, theme that went behind it? Because, I believe that when you wrote the book, it was based on humans, or it was always using non-human entities as humans.
Yeah. So there was a point where we looked at Mouse. We looked at both Mouse and BoJack Horseman, and when you understand why pieces like that resonate so much with us, it's because animals have this relationship with us. There's a relatability to it. But at the same time, when you talk about controversial topics or things that might seem controversial, things that we hold to be taboo in our community, sometimes it helps to disassociate humans from the actual events. And that's why animals became such a strong aspect of it, is because we were able to disassociate maybe actual human beings from the events that took place. And that kind of gives you an objective way of looking about something.
Correct,
Bojack
correct.
does it great with depression. Mouse did it great with the Holocaust. We hope that it was able to do its own thing for the story of the partition.
Definitely, definitely. And there were certain scenes, certain religious sentiments that, you explored, especially with
Yeah,
Alu and, the storage of Alu and that. So that I think contributed a lot in the story that you gave us of, choosing non-human entities instead of human entities. So that was actually interesting. And
thank you.
especially the characters that you have chosen, especially the Prime Minister and the speech from the Red Fort. That is one of my favorite panels from the book.
Yeah. It's a
And
beautiful one. He did a very good job of
it's
capturing
amazing.
that moment.
That, and the one thing, in the as the panels flow, there is a certain radio noise that's behind the panels. And
Yeah.
when you are reading the book, you can actually hear that radio presenter speaking. That's the beauty of the panels as they
That's
move
amazing.
along, and you have a small box between the panels.
Yeah,
That's actually
I think
that's
still,
very
even in India
interesting.
today, the radio is still listened to. And so I think anyone you hear a radio announcement, you imagine the sounds of whatever it is, like, Radio Mirchi coming to mind immediately. And then
Exactly.
how that radio actually plays in everyday life, and how the things that we listen to can actually influence the things that everyday citizens go through.
Correct, correct. The book is set in 1947, but there are almost all the instances are very contemporary. Be it Chhotu's story, be it the religious sentiment in the book, be it the feeling among people, the feeling of change. So that is present even now, and we can see that happening around us. So making the story contemporary, setting it in 1947, how difficult was that?
It was, I think a part of it was we started off in the present before Partition came into the book. Um, but at the end of the day, it wasn't so difficult. I think the parallels, the tangents between then and now are just so clear. Um, Especially since there were things that we included in the book as humor, such as Alu going missing. And then when the book was coming out, we actually had the entire Pyaz thing in Delhi. And like, the Pyaz prices actually caused
Correct,
commotion in Delhi, and it was on newspaper headlines. And I was like,
correct.
wait, this was supposed to be humor? This part was supposed to be satire, not reality? And then, it's happening in the world around us. I just think
Yeah.
the parallels between 1947 today are just so vivid, so strong.
Yeah, I agree. And even I remember there is a panel. I couldn't find it in the book now when I was looking for it. But there's a panel which talks about a virus creating havoc. Uh, and reading that during this pandemic, that was like, okay, they have done something very different. I am reading Simpsons now.
Yeah, again, I mean, we weren't expecting these things when we put it in. That was actually just
Correct,
supposed to be the start of a plot line. That's how Chhotu gets to meet here because of the viral has started. It turns
correct,
out if we rewrote this book, Chotu's world would have drastically changed because of the coronavirus. Like, things
correct,
would be drastically different.
correct, correct. Uh, So parathas are an integral part of the story as well
Yeah.
because जब तक रहेगा आलू तब तक रहेगा चांदनी चौक पर पराठा. So how are your experience of Chandni Chowk, a part of this book?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't grow up in Delhi. So going to Chandni Chowk to me was, summer vacations with my nana when we would go stall to stall, gully to gully, eating chaat. I have very vivid memories of Chandni Chowk that way. The funny thing is, if you go to Chandni Chowk now, it's easy to have a romanticized notion of something. and it might not necessarily hold up today. And that's why a lot of it came to be. Let's go back and revisit the golden age of Chandni Chowk, or that the precipice of change in the town. But I think for me, I've always had a very romanticized notion of the gullies and the chaat, and it was just such a strong memory I had. And as a foodie, obviously, in Delhi, some of the best things to eat, Daulat ki chaat, just fantastic.
Yeah. That's a fun story. In February, I was planning to go to have Daulat ki chat, and somehow I couldn't go, college, everything, and then suddenly lockdown happened. So I was like, okay, now it's gone. I have to wait another year just to go and have that. So because I belong to Lucknow, and I have had the Makhan Malai there, so I always
Yeah.
wanted to do a comparison. Heard it's the same thing, but have never been got the chance to do that. So that's
So
the first thing that's happening.
when COVID is, or when the world has some normal feeling to it again, we'll go together. We'll go have some chat.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so collaborating with Ayushi, how was that as an experience?
It was amazing. I think a graphic novel gets to be something so special because you have just the combination of two minds. You have a writer's perspective and you have a visual perspective at the same time. And it's difficult at points to get that to match and make that world come to life. But when you are able to do something like that, it's remarkable of its own, because um, you can take words, and words can describe. I can be the most descriptive person in the world. I might always come second to a beautiful illustration, like the panel of Nehru at Red Fort. Like,
Correct.
words are inconceivable of that moment, of just the feeling of just Independence Day. And so being able to work with Ayushi, and an amazing aesthetic and style design, really brought that to life.
So, in this Independence Day, if you had been in Chotu's place and you had the chance to address the people, what would be your message to everyone?
I think maybe influenced by him, but the words of Nehru often come to mind. It's that, today is a day of celebration, it's a day to rejoice, but it's also a day to take a step back and ask ourselves, what does freedom mean? What was the cost that freedom put upon us? What are the responsibilities that come with freedom? And almost his exact words, that no nation can be great whose people are narrow in thought. And this country only works if we're all there for each other. And so I think really, really taking a moment to think about freedom and responsibility. And I think Nehru's speech just does a very good job of capturing that moment.
That's one of the first lines that comes to mind whenever we talk about Independence Day at the stroke
Yeah,
of midnight hour. That's the best speech you can actually talk about on Independence Day.
absolutely.
So one last thing that I have for you is a short
Okay.
rapid fire, and so that we get to know you.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
so what are you reading currently?
I am currently reading the new sci-fi book that won an award recently, and I'm gonna completely butcher the name. But it's an Empire of Memory,
Okay.
an Empire called Memory.
Okay, we'll have to Google that. I haven't
Yeah,
read it. Have to check it out.
I'm a
Definitely.
big fantasy sci-fi reader, so that's what I tend to consume.
Okay, that sounds like a good book. What are you currently watching?
Currently watching. I finally got around to watching Made in Heaven, um, and I thought it was actually a very good portrayal of life in Delhi. There were moments very much like India matchmaking that you cringe and you question some of the choices that people make. But for a show like that to actually have that social messaging, I think that was very important in there. And I think
Correct.
I think we have to kind of relook at some of our priorities that we have, especially when it comes to marriage.
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food. When I need comfort food, Japanese katsu curry is usually what I go to. There's a restaurant in Delhi I finally found. Pre-COVID, I would get a meal from there almost every week, just like when I'm stressed out. That really helped me out.
Uh, Favorite place in Delhi?
Favorite place in Delhi. I have recently, again, pre-COVID, haven't left the house much since, but Humayupur, because there have been a lot of restaurants from Meghalaya and from Assam and Nagaland that have opened up there, and the food is just mind-blowing. And so I think one of my friends, Kiran, she showed me this place, and then there's like specialities. It's almost like a Chandni Chowk tour. You can go to small places, pick up some specialities here and there.
Right. So thank you, Varud. I will take in Ayushi as well. And for those who don't know, Varud has also written a book called Bhagwan Ke Pakwan, which
Yes.
is a book based on food. So that is also there. Do check that out as well.
Yeah, you would have seen most of my answers just now had to do with food.
Food. So we
Yeah.
have a foodie writer.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank
Varud. Thank
you.
you for joining in.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all the support that you've given Chhotu, and happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day, Varud. I will just take in Ayushi then. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye bye. So I will now take in Ayushi for the session.
Hi,
Hello. Hi, Ayushi.
how are you
How
guys
are you?
doing? Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm
good.
fine.
Yes, happy independence. I just saw the
Happy
entire
Independence Day.
interview for Varad. Yeah,
So this was a pretty last minute plan.
yeah.
I was just talking to Bharat last night. I'll call it today morning,
Okay.
the time it was. So I knew you guys had a reading, so I thought it would be not easy for you to make time, but then I got lucky.
Yeah,
I got both of
Varad
you online.
messaged me. I think when he was talking to you last night, he messaged me, so it was pretty late. I saw it in the morning. So then I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll work around it.
So thank you for joining. I know you
Yes.
had a hectic schedule today, and it was not easy.
Yeah, thank you for doing
So
this. I'm excited.
it, it's my
Yeah.
pleasure as well. Especially during this time, this is the only way we get to interact.
Definitely. And that's what, like, how Bharat was saying that we got to meet you at first launch and just to get interviewed by you, like, you've been a great support. So thank you so much.
It's a
Yeah.
pleasure, reading Chhotu. And my cousins were here. I was just showing them the book as well. So
Awesome.
they're actually interested by your drawings
Oh,
and the
awesome.
sketches.
Yeah, tell them to buy the book, guys.
Definitely, definitely. Uh, so I will start with you,
Hmm.
talking about the panels because the book has a lot of panels,
Yeah.
a lot of finalized panels. And as you talked in your launch as well, there are a lot of panels that you rejected.
Yeah.
So how difficult was that, to draw these characters and, create these panels one by one?
So what was good about this was that we made up to 5, 6 drafts because our story kept changing and evolving, and more information we put into the story every time I had to redraw it. So what we actually did was we did rough drawings first of the story. We didn't finalize anything. So making those drafts were much easier. So
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, so
Maybe.
basically, yeah,
Yeah, you
what
can continue.
Bharat and I sat down and wrote down the entire story, and then each chapter that we did, we first drew a rough of it, and then we finalized it. So it took us about 5, 6 drafts to get to the final stage. So of course it was a lot of work, and that's why it took us about 1.5 years just to finish the draft and then get into the detailing of the panels. So it was quite a long process. But it's
Uh,
I for any illustrator out there, we uh, we had to basically you have to kind of make the story for like, finalize the story and then start doing the draft together. Don't start finalizing your illustrations because then you're going to have a really tough time if there's a change. So
Correct.
it's like a, yeah,
Varud has a comment.
yeah,
I
I
made
know.
her redo so many panels.
Yeah, you know what happens is like in a graphic novel, you have so many panels, and it's like a trickle effect. If you change one panel, then you have to change the next, then the next, then the next, because accordingly you have to kind of basically the reading of the pages change. So then it's a lot of time consumed. So that's why you have to kind of do the drafts again and again so that you know exactly what you're going to finalize. Yeah.
Yeah. So, creating these characters, did you identify the monkey character for Chhotu in the very beginning, or was it a trial and error process?
Chhotu was the toughest character to draw for me. We finalized Sher, Heer, Pandey, everyone pretty quickly because they were much easier to draw, and plus, like instantly, I had a vision for it. But for Chhotu, I think I might have drawn him at least 100 different ways before finalizing that this is what Chhotu looks like, and he was our main character. So I think there's a lot of pressure in my head that he has to actually look the way we've imagined him to look. So I think that was the toughest. Chotu was the toughest character to draw.
So, if I can
Very
draw parallels, it is
yes,
almost, uh, shooting a movie because the script writer has written a story,
yes.
but it's the camera and the artist that has to tell the story.
Yeah, and the casting, like you have to make sure you're getting the right actor on board to actually play your character. So the same way in this, I had to visualize him, and every time I drew him in a certain way, I would show it to Vara. Then both of us would discuss that. Okay, this is working about it. There were so many times that we finalized Chotu, and then we just went back and changed it again because it just the mood has to be right in the book and the characterization that Bharat did, I had to make sure like it matched what he was visualizing as well.
Right. There is a certain scene in the book that has been drawn from DDLJ.
Yes.
So, whose idea was that? I'm very interested to know
Uh,
that.
Both because actually Bharat thought of it that he wanted to open the book with the DDLJ scene of Shah Rukh Khan because both of us are big Shah Rukh Khan fans. And we wanted, and he did a dream sequence. And then I went and rewatched DDLJ just for fun. But I just that Khet wala scene came into my mind, and that's why I took that as inspiration, and I was like, even the ringing of the bell, like the cow bell that happens in the movie, we did a little
Correct.
ting a ding of that, and and Shah Rukh Khan was wearing a straw cap and he was wearing a leather jacket, so
Let me
that
see
just
if I can open that. I think it's one of the initial scenes.
yeah, it's I think page number 3 only, just right after
Yeah,
the school opening.
yeah, it's that. I
Yeah,
got that.
and he's
I think it will
holding a
come
guitar.
opposite, but it's
Yes,
the scene.
yeah. So he's
Yeah,
holding a guitar, and
yeah, that's actually interesting. And the sounds, as I was talking to Varun, the radio
mhm.
sound, and there are background sounds that you can actually hear in the comics.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Like Bharat and I had already decided that we want sound effects, even in the form of just writing it, but we wanted sound effects. So that's why we would even like thak thak, and we would want Indian sound effects, not even like doing bang bang. It would more be like khat khat or like very Indianized sound effects we wanted.
And I like the greeting that made for Chotu and his friend, the entire sequence,
Yeah,
the coco and
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and
So that is
just
basically a handshake. Huh, say.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, no, just holding the phone in my hand, so I can't do that, but that's
Yeah,
actually very
even
interesting.
I'll do it with one hand.
Yeah,
So basically, Varad and I, we came up with this little cacaw thing while playing games. So it's like a sign for positive energy or like for protection. So we would just do this sign. and that's how we came up with the handshake. So,
Yeah,
and we've
that's
been
actually
doing
one
it
of the
since a very long
interesting.
time. Yeah. So it's like a little
So
bit
I
of
think
us also in the book. Yeah.
that's how you guys greet each other now when you meet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like our sign. Every time we play a game or something, we use this.
So I asked the same question to Varud, and I'll pose the same question to
Hmm.
you. Uh, the book is set in 1947. The themes are contemporary. So what is your take on it?
I think, like Bharat said, that we wanted the current affairs to be as much of part of the book as the past, because making a book in about the past, of course, you can read a lot about it and you can relate to a lot of your past history, anyways. Like Indians know a lot about it, but how do we make this book more meaningful and more, since we talk about change, this was our little contribution to make a change in the reality of what is happening. And yeah, so it was a very important, like I definitely wanted our current affairs to be as much a part of the book as the past. So yeah, and contemporary also taking in. We didn't want it to be a very intense book either. So just taking Bollywood references, making it more relatable to young audience, because primarily we are the generation who's going to grow up older and try to make a change by the end of it. So how do we make this book more readable, more relatable, so that it's fun, but yet it has a message and yet it has things that are happening in the present. So we definitely wanted to do justice to that.
Right. Working with Varud, what was your experience?
I think it was amazing. Of course, there were so many ups and downs. I think that happens in a 2 year long, more than 2 year long project. Of course, you will have a lot of differences, but the thing is that uh, you end up I enjoyed a lot, basically. I just really enjoyed working with him, and we kind of developed a secret language. Like no one would understand what we are doing, but we would understand what we are doing. And like if even if I drew a circle or a scribble, Bharat would know exactly what I've drawn. Or if he drew something, I would be like, "Huh, son, I've understood what you're doing." So and then that's how we developed our first draft. It was very rough drawing. Only Varad and I knew what was happening, and we submitted it to Penguin. And Penguin's like, "What is happening? We don't really understand anything." So that way, working with Varad was amazing. And plus, like, we had such a great relationship, anyways, before, and that's why we wanted to work together. So it was fun. We will
So
do
basically,
something in the future, Varad, if you're
basically
watching. Yeah.
playing Pictionary with you guys is a very difficult game then, because you guys
Uh, yeah.
like practice that.
No, Pictionary, not as much, but yeah, a lot of games and stuff we play. But Pictionary also, we should definitely try. Let's see what happens. Maybe actually, yeah, because I would understand what he's drawn much faster than other people. So maybe we should be in different
Correct.
teams. That would be great. You can be on my
That'll
team.
be that'll
Yeah.
be great. Okay. So another question. This Independence Day, what would
Mhm.
be your message as Chotu to the people?
Um, that, yeah, just be responsible, I think, and be I think vocalize what you if you ever feel like there's injustice, because that's what the book is about, finding a voice and finding a, you don't need like a platform to start talking about things that are happening in our country or just generally in your own homes. So I think just the strength, I think don't be afraid, and people are listening, people are starting to listen, start having conversations just in your own house. I think that would be, and yes, like Varad said, understand what freedom actually means, because what freedom meant in 1947, it's a lot different now what freedom means now. So
Correct. That's
yes.
actually an interesting point.
Mhm.
Okay, so time for your rapid fire now.
Yes,
After
okay.
Varud. So, what are you reading currently?
I am not reading anything currently, but my last book was a graphic novel. So it was called Jerusalem by Guy Delisle. But right now, I'm not currently reading anything. Yeah.
Okay, watching anything?
Yeah, I started rewatching this TV show called That 70s Show because I've just run out of all TV shows, and it's just something in the background I keep playing while working or anything. It's just playing. Otherwise, the last one I saw was Dark, which was very intense. So, but
Yeah,
fun to watch. Yeah, very confusing. I still don't understand it, but
I
it
am
was
yet to
fun.
watch it. Got a
Okay.
lot of recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's your favorite food?
And I think I like all types of cuisines, but my go-to food would be a pizza. So, yeah, pizzas. And also Bharat's cooking. Anytime he cooks, you guys have to try his food. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have seen his stories. He cooks some really amazing food.
Yeah, amazing. We
Uh,
we sometimes only get to eat it, but we really enjoy. I always overeat when he cooks.
what's your favorite place in Delhi?
Favorite place in Delhi. There's so many. I think there's this bowling place in Essex Farms. So just as a childhood thing, we would go there all the time after school. So that's one of our favorite spots. Then home, I think home is also like staying home is fun. It's also Chandni Chowk was my a go-to place for me when I was younger. We used to go there every weekend. I used to go with my father. So,
So,
and we've all
what's
grown
your
up on eating.
take
Yes.
on the redevelopment plan that's happening in Chandni Chowk?
So I think the road that they've built, I think it's a great idea. But it's just the transport, they have to kind of figure out what they want to do with it because a lot of old people go there for shopping and stuff, and just walking would be a little hard for them because they are going to not let vehicles enter the road, main Nai Sadak. So that way, I think definitely a lot of tourism attractions and all, like it will definitely increase. So that way, it's great. A lot of businesses will improve, and that way, it's a good plan. It's just small things they have to figure out.
Right,
Yes,
right. So, since you are a graphic designer,
yes.
what message would you like to give to people who want to, come into graphic designing?
So, graphic design, I think it's all mostly about your creativity, but also about, I think, studying is very important. Um, get the right skills, but like you don't have to study like a course or anything, but keep figuring out how to improve your skill and how to improve just because you have the talent inside you is just keep on improving and learning and taking feedback is super important and actually using that especially in college. One thing I realized was that the teachers actually mean well for me by giving me feedback and actually take it with a pinch of salt and just because they know what they're talking about. So
Yeah,
yes,
I agree
yes,
on that. Yeah. So, thank you, Ayushi. Thank you for
thank
joining. It
you.
was fun having you.
Yes. And thank you for
And
organizing this. It was a lot of fun and happy Independence Day to everyone.
thank you. And congratulations to you and Varud for winning the prize at Comic
Yes.
Con Awards as well.
Thank you so
So
much.
that's something I forgot to mention. It just came to my mind.
Yeah, we were so
So
shocked. Actually, we got the nominations and we didn't even get to know about it. And once we saw that we got for the writer, best writer, the and then we later on realized that we've also got for the best graphic novel of the year. So then we were just shocked. I was just happy by the fact that we were nominated, but the win was like really amazing.
you guys deserved it, and the nominations and the way
Mhm.
it was there, it deserved everything.
Thank
So
you so much.
thank you. Thank you, Ayushi, for
Yes.
joining. Thank you, Varud,
Yes.
for being here, answering the questions, and for arranging this as well. So thank you. Happy
Thank
Independence
you.
Day.
Happy
And
Independence Day, guys.
do check
Go
out the book,
watch our,
guys.
yes.
And
Go
do check
check
out the
out our
book.
book and also check out our live reading for our, we did chapter one, chapter two, and chapter four, little bit. Not a lot of spoilers, but do check it out if you're interested. You'll get a little flavor of what our book is about.
Yeah, the reading is interesting. Do check it out. It's on Chhotu graphic novel, the Instagram page.
Yeah.
So do be there and check it out. Thank you
Yes.
guys for being
Thank
here,
you.
and it was a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you guys for joining. That was Varud Gupta and Ayushi Rastogi, are the writers of Chhotu. Happy Independence Day, guys, and do check out the book. Check out the live reading on their Instagram page, Chhotu Graphic Novel. And this video will be there on my IGTV. Do check it out.